They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
All right, guys. I know we've been getting a lot of questions lately, specifically on Twitter and on Discord, of y'all asking about certain players that possibly could be traded before the trade deadline. So I figured it would be nice to make a video with the top guys that I think could make an impact if they are traded off their current NBA franchise. And I'm not going to talk about players like LeBron James that are obviously not going to get traded. While yes, there are a ton of players in the NBA that if they were traded, it would make large impacts. We are going to focus in on the players that I think are either likely to be traded or at the very minimum have a decent shot to be. So yeah, but before we get into the video, I need to say a couple things. One, if you have not already, what are you doing? Go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment asking me any fantasy basketball question that you may have. And also, guys, I don't know if you are already, but if you have not seen our tweet as of late from the Fantasy Flock Network account on Twitter, make sure you run over there. I will have a tweet up that says, reply to this tweet with a screenshot of your fantasy basketball roster to be broken down on the next video. Now, y'all know generally I just do this stuff through the YouTube comment section where I answer a ton of your questions, but you can't leave a screenshot of your roster in the YouTube comment section, so that's gonna have to be on Twitter, and I'm just gonna be taking some teams from the replies I get to that tweet. But anyway, let's get into this video and let's talk about some players that are either likely to be traded or at the very minimum have the possibility. And our first player is going to be for the Atlanta Hawks, and this is going to be John Collins. Okay, so reportedly, John Collins is looking like he is not happy in Atlanta. Obviously, Atlanta did not give him the extension or just the deal that he wanted last offseason, so he bet on himself. He said, you know what, I'm going to prove in 2021 that I am worth the money that I'm asking for. And the Atlanta Hawks really are put in a tough spot where they're either going to be forced to pay John Collins that massive contract this offseason, or they're going to have to get him off this roster. And right now, I mean, Collins has been an impactful player for fantasy basketball owners, where it doesn't matter if you're playing in a points league, it doesn't matter if you're playing in a category league, because right now, I mean, he's averaging 32 minutes a game. He's giving you 18 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, some defensive numbers to go along with it. But for those category leagues at the same time, I mean, he's giving you high levels of efficiency. He's giving you 54% from the field, over 85% from the free throw line. So obviously, John Collins is someone that a lot of fantasy owners are relying on. And if we look across the NBA, I don't even really see a fit that I think makes a ton of sense with John Collins. Yeah, there are some teams that look like they would be appealing to land a role player, especially if you're going to be a contending roster. I think bringing John Collins in and what he's going to be able to allow for your second unit in particular, if you are that elite level contending team, really opening up a ton with the pick and roll game that he can go through with those guards. We've seen time and time again that Trae Young is able to find John Collins exactly where he needs to on the court, where John Collins is getting easy looks to the basket. So I will say, if he's traded out of Atlanta, I honestly do not think I would like that for his fantasy value, because obviously he's going to have to acclimate to whatever new team he's on. But also, right now with Atlanta, he's kind of in a nice situation where he has a role that he can rely on. He is seeing about 13 shots a game. I do not really see him getting much more than that, regardless of whatever team he's playing on. So if you're a John Collins owner, I think what you're wanting is you're wanting him to stay on this team. And because the Atlanta Hawks are currently asking for a lottery pick in return, I think that it's likely that John Collins is going to stay with the Atlanta Hawks. And yeah, you better hope so. All right, now our next player, I swear to God, is someone that we talk about every single video. I don't know how many times his name has been brought up on this podcast, but this is going to be Andre Drummond, who reportedly is 100% going to be out of Cleveland. And this is something that we've been expecting ever since the Jarrett Allen trade, where the Cleveland Cavaliers brought in Jarrett Allen. We know that they have so many big men on that roster that it makes no sense for them to kind of just waste away the future value that they could get in trading Andre Drummond, as it would be different if this team was a contending team for 2021. But the Cavs, to no surprise of anyone, really don't have a shot in the Eastern Conference to make any type of noise in the playoffs, even if they were able to sneak in through the play-in tournament. So now we are going to see Andre Drummond moved. If he goes to a contending team that minutes are available for the big men, I think that that would be fantastic. I mean, right now, he is only seeing about 29 minutes per game. But with those 29 minutes per game, he is averaging close to 14 rebounds, 18 points, and we know that he's always going to be giving you fantastic defensive statistics. So Drummond is definitely a player that I would prefer in a points league over a category league, as he's not going to give you a single three-point shot the entire season. His free throw percentage is currently sitting under 60%. His field goal percentage is about at 47%. So if you're in a points league, I think right now, when there's so much uncertainty around Andre Drummond, this may be a player that I'm actually willing to go out there and trade for. Because if he's moved to a contending team that desperately needs someone to go up there and get boards, I think Drummond could be a player seeing about 33, 34 minutes in the rotation. And I think he could be coming down with 14 rebounds a game, which is going to be elite level production for really anybody that you're going to be able to get at his price. And lastly, I understand that the majority of leagues, this is not going to be relevant. But if you are playing in a league where the owner of Jarrett Allen does not understand what's about to happen, you need to be aggressively pursuing Jarrett Allen in a trade. Now, like I said, I understand this is going to be hard to do. People are excited about Jarrett Allen for very good reasons. I am very excited about Jarrett Allen. He was at the University of Texas the same time I was, so of course that's going to be a player that I'm rooting for nonstop. So yeah, if you can go get Allen, who's just going to be a block and a rebounding monster, that's also something I'm looking to do. All right, so now let's go to our next player on another team that is not ready to compete right now, another rebuilding franchise. It's going to be Harrison Barnes. And really just everything points to the fact that Harrison Barnes is most likely not going to be on the Sacramento Kings for much longer. I mean, there's no reason for them to decide to keep Harrison Barnes on for 2021 when you definitely need to be giving your minutes to the young talent that you have on the roster, like a Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, you want Halliburton in that starting lineup, and if he is going to be seeing a significant amount of minutes, if you want him to continue to develop with De'Aaron Fox, I think trading Harrison Barnes and getting a nice pick upgrade or just a couple additional picks for this team to build in the future would make a ton of sense. And very similar to John Collins. I mean, if Harrison Barnes is traded off the Sacramento Kings, it's going to be no bueno. I mean, maybe it's fantastic. Maybe he goes to the Boston Celtics and he can play alongside Jaylen Brown and play alongside Jason Tatum. Maybe he goes to the Miami Heat. Regardless of wherever he goes, with Harrison Barnes, I can almost guarantee you that he's not going to be seeing 36 minutes a game. I mean, he is seeing close to 36 minutes a game right now. He is not going to be seeing 11 shot attempts per game either. He's not going to have 6.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds. He's not going to have the elite numbers of efficiency that he currently does. Actually, maybe that's something I'm wrong with. Maybe if he went to a more talented roster, we could see the field goal percentage go up even higher than what it is right now. But the raw totals, those numbers would definitely go down. So as we approach the NBA trade deadline, Harrison Barnes is someone that I am definitely looking to sell high, because right now, I mean, he's giving you 16 points. He is giving you 6 rebounds. He's giving you 3.5 assists. And if you're playing in a category league, he's giving you good numbers from both the free throw line and from the field. So I think that there would be more than a few teams willing to trade for Harrison Barnes in your fantasy league. And if he's going to be off Sacramento soon, I think that's something that we would look to do. All right, so now let's go to our next player, someone who has been disappointing this season. And this is going to be Kyle Lowry. And right now, Kyle Lowry just put his house for sale in Toronto. And I understand you can go through and you can say that's for a multitude of reasons. Maybe he just wants to move. Maybe it's because he's living in Tampa and he's like, you know what, maybe I like him more in Tampa. Let's live here during the offseason rather than Toronto. But if we are looking at the way that this Raptors team is trending and we are trying to understand how they can maximize their assets going forward, I think how they do that is they decide to move on from Kyle Lowry. They would be able to get a significant amount in return. There would be a ton of suitors. I think Lowry could be a great fit on the Heat, the Nuggets, the 76ers, and all of those teams are pushing to win now. I mean, despite the Heat's record, we understand that it was due to COVID why they started off so slow, and I think that's a team that's definitely going to be in the playoffs. They're definitely going to be making a run, trying to get back to the NBA Finals, and if they can trade one of their expiring contracts for Kyle Lowry, that will make a ton of sense. And right now, Lowry, I mean, is decent across the board. Maybe you can make the argument that if you're playing in a category league, you're not excited about it with him only shooting 44% from the field. But outside of that, I mean, great numbers from the free throw line. He's giving you close to 3 3-point shots a game, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. Kyle Lowry, it would suck to see him out of Toronto. I know Raptors fans love him, and if you're a Raptors fan watching this video, I know you're going to be pissed with me. But if we are just looking at what would make the most sense for the Raptors organization, I think what it would be is to move on from Kyle Lowry. All right, now let's go to our next guard who has horrible numbers of efficiency with his field goal percentage, and this is going to be Lonzo Ball. Okay, so with Lonzo Ball, I mean, he's shooting 42% from the field right now in New Orleans, and this New Orleans team needs to make some changes. I mean, they look so much worse than last year, and you can argue it's because they possibly traded their best player off the roster. You can argue that they brought in a new head coach. Regardless of what it is, I mean, this team has 4 guys in their starting lineup all wanting to play a different brand of basketball, and it's not meshing at all. I mean, you can't have Zion Williamson walking up the court while Lonzo Ball is trying his best to push the pace of play. So I'm expecting Lonzo to be traded. We've had rumors that he could end up going to Chicago. And if Lonzo Ball was moved off the Pelicans roster, I think it could possibly help him. I mean, if he's going to be going to Golden State, if he's going to be going to Chicago, really just mixing it up anywhere else where he's a better fit on their roster, I think he could become a much better fantasy asset because we know he's more than willing to put up the 3 ball. Regardless of what the efficiency is looking like from beyond the arc, he is going to be taking a good amount of those shots every single night. And on top of that, he's a guard that's going to be giving you decent numbers of rebounds and assists in his minutes played. So if Lonzo is moved to the Chicago Bulls, I think that's something that we want to get excited about. All right, so now the last player is probably the guy that y'all been waiting to hear about, and this is going to be Bradley Beal. And okay, guys, I understand. I mean, Bradley Beal has been so exciting in Washington. I understand that he has said on multiple occasions that he is wanting to stay in Washington. But of course that's what he's going to say. I mean, what do you want Bradley Beal to say? If he pulls a James Harden and if he says, get me out of here, this is a losing franchise, send me to a contender right now, the media is going to hate him. So Bradley Beal is kind of going about this in a smart way. I mean, he's going about it in that he is trying to play his cards right, and he is just putting up a ridiculous amount of numbers in Washington. He's putting up 24 shots a game, which is translating over to 33 points a game. And I will say that I can guarantee you, if Bradley Beal is traded before the trade deadline, the shots per game will be going down. I mean, maybe you could make the argument that his field goal percentage would go up just with more playmakers on the court, drawing attention away from the opposing defense. But I think right now we have to be trying our best to be selling Bradley Beal in fantasy basketball for someone that's producing similar numbers. Maybe they're just a smaller name, maybe someone like a Zach LaVine. That would be something that's exciting in my opinion, because we know LaVine is going to be a very safe asset where he is pretty much right up there in every single statistical category, but you do not need to worry about him getting moved off the Chicago Bulls. And at the same time, if you're making a trade like that, you're going to be able to get something added on top of Zach LaVine. Because Bradley Beal, I mean, 33 points a game. People are going to get excited about that number. I believe he is still leading the NBA in points per game. So, yeah, I think that if he is moved off, we could be seeing him go to the Philadelphia 76ers. We could be seeing him go to the Denver Nuggets. Outside of that, I mean, it's going to cost a lot for Bradley Beal to be moved. I mean, the 76ers could obviously send Simmons. The Nuggets could send some draft picks along with Michael Porter Jr. So I think that is what would open things up for Bradley Beal. But if we do not see that happen, I think that he is going to continue to be an elite fantasy asset. But if it does, Bradley Beal is going to see more open shots, but there are going to be less shots to be had. Because if he's playing alongside Joel Embiid, if he's playing alongside Nikola Jokic, he's not going to have the ball in his hands every single possession. All right, so our last player, I'm going to keep it very brief because we talk about him all the time. But this is going to be Michael Porter Jr. And here with Michael Porter Jr., I mean, I don't know what to say. He has all of the talent in the world. He has all of the potential in the world. But it just seems like the Denver Nuggets and Michael Porter Jr. aren't that great of a fit. I mean, he is playing 100% off the ball, which you can make the argument that's how you want him to be on the court. But I don't see how Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. are all going to grow into each other into a system that really works out for everyone. I think what we are going to end up seeing is possibly Michael Porter Jr. moved for a great asset like Bradley Beal. Because just imagine the Denver Nuggets, you take Michael Porter Jr., you add a couple high draft picks on top of him, you're able to come back with a stud like a Bradley Beal, and you are extremely excited about your chances in the NBA playoffs. Of course, until you get up against the Lakers, but you can say that about any team. And right now, if you're just rolling with Michael Porter Jr., you're kind of stuck in no man's land, just hoping that these pieces eventually fit together where it's going to be hard to see that happening. Well, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if you did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, and I will see y'all with the video tomorrow.